Welcome to Leading the Follower with your host, Rebecca Benston. Welcome back to Leading the Follower. This is your host, Rebecca Benston, and I am stopping in today to share a few thoughts with you that were on my mind this morning. I generally do a more, not scripted, a more organized presentation of my thoughts um, based on a blog post that I've recently written. But today I wanted to just kind of share what was on my mind when I woke up this morning and, give some insights and thoughts related to that. It's a little different format than what I usually do here, but I figured it might be an interesting change of pace. And since these thoughts were pressing on me the way that they were, I felt like maybe this was where I was meant to share those. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how sometimes our memories can kind of come back up at a time when we need to pay special attention to the things that are going on in our present day life. Things that we push back, things that we have tried not to think about, those things can resurface, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you've taken a good bit of time to heal from whatever it is that you have stopped thinking about or tried to stop thinking about. There's always a good reason for those things to come into your consciousness again. So I want to talk a little bit about what I was thinking and what I think it means, and hope that this resonates with someone out there who may have gone through something similar, or maybe is going through something similar. And I hope that you're not, because what I went through was really not a good thing, and it's not something that I've shared a whole lot about on this blog. I've shared a little, but I've also written some about it in some books that I've written. So I do plan to write a little bit more in depth about it, but I'm kind of working my way toward that because, as I said, it was kind of a difficult situation and a very difficult healing process that I went through. So I want to share a little bit now. You may or may not know, if you have read any of my history or my background, that I am a rape survivor, and that actually happened back in around 1995. I was about 22 years old, I believe. I had moved out of my parents' house and was dealing with some severe depression over things that were going on at home. My parents had gotten a divorce, and it hit me kind of hard because things had just been kind of crazy throughout my teenage years. And when they finally did get divorced, it was kind of difficult for me to process. But the part of it that was more difficult to process was that not long after they had the divorce hearing, they actually reconciled. And so what I thought was a closed chapter was reopened, and I just didn't want to be involved in that any longer. So that's a much longer story and involves people that, I don't want to speak for other people at this point, but the impact it had on me was strong, and set off kind of a chain of events that led to this other incident. However, I know things happen for a reason, and I've been able to do a lot of healing since this happened. So I'm not gonna dwell on how the divorce affected me as much as I want to talk about how the rape itself and the healing process played out in my life. Um, anyway, I had moved out. I had been threatening to move out for years because I had wanted to go into the military when I was younger, and plans for that kind of fell through. So I was kind of wandering aimlessly, trying to figure out my place, and just kind of going through the motions, working and going to school, and just trying to get a sense of who I was, really. Um, I unfortunately picked up a pretty bad drinking habit. I was very much anti alcohol and anti drugs and anything like that. I was very, very adamant that I would never do that kind of thing. And I've found in the years since then, that you have to be careful what you say you'll never do, because you often end up doing that as some sort of a lesson that you're supposed to learn about why other people end up doing those things. Um, and I've learned quite a bit since the days when I would just stand on my soapbox and talk about how I would just never do this because I didn't understand why people did it. But as things happened, I was very frustrated at that time with a lot of the things that were going on in my house, my apartment. Um, I shared the apartment space with my cousin at the time, and we were very good friends for most of our lives. And she had a boyfriend that stayed with us sometimes, off and on, just because it was a very small space and there was really not, it wasn't a Three's Company type of a deal. Um, so I got really frustrated with both of them and decided one night that I was gonna drink all of their alcohol that they had in my refrigerator, because I thought that was a logical way to fight back when I didn't agree with what someone was doing, is to just use all their resources and do it myself, which was really stupid. But in the mind of a 22-year-old, there are a lot of things that seem smart and strategic at the time, but end up just being dumb. And so I ended up getting really, really, really drunk because, of course, I had no tolerance for alcohol. I hadn't built up anything because I wasn't a drinker, and this stupid thing that I did just caused me to be a mess. So, of course, it had the opposite effect. They didn't see it as um, an insult or any kind of an attack of any kind. I had meant for it to be, I'm making a stand here. I'm drinking all your stuff, and you shouldn't do this and this and that. I'm not sure where I was going with it, but I ended up just, it was kind of one of those, if you can't beat them, join them type of a things. And that hadn't been my intention. My intention had been for it to stop and for better things to happen, but that's not how it went. so so basically, time went on, not much time, but soon after that, I had a binge drinking thing that I ended up doing, and this person that was staying with us took advantage of the fact that I was really drunk and basically blacked out to the point where I had no knowledge of anything that was going on for several hours. Um, and my roommate had also passed out because I think she had had a little too much to drink. And somehow I had been carried into my room, and the next thing I know, I come out of this blackout with this guy, doing things that he didn't have permission to do. Um, and at the time, I was not a sexually active person. I was also waiting for the right person, for that. So I had no experience in any of this. I didn't know what was going on. I was, I had an idea what was going on, but I was just like, I didn't ask for this, and wouldn't have, because it wasn't what I wanted. And and it just, something in me broke at that moment, and I try not to think of the particulars of the situation. However, there are times when it comes into my consciousness where I think about the logistics of how this was orchestrated and how it happened, and what would lead you to think that this was the right course of action to take with someone who was your friend and who was giving you a place to stay, and allowing you to hang out and be there. And we were decent friends. There was no weird animosity or anything. It wasn't like this was a boyfriend of hers that I didn't like. He was very much a person that I looked up to and had admired and thought was a really cool guy up until that point, of course. Um, and I was terrified because I didn't know what to think. If he would do this, what else would he do? And of course, he wasn't violent toward me, but he was violent in the respect that this was not something you were supposed to take from me. This was something that was not yours to have, and you took it without my permission, because I couldn't fight you. I couldn't tell you not to take it. So my worldview changed a lot at that moment, at the time that I realized that people could step in and do this sort of thing to you if you let your guard down the way that I had. So never mind being scared that I was blacked out and nearly, poisoned to death by the amount of alcohol I'd taken in. Um, the end result had been that something very, very dear to me had been taken, something that I had been saving for the right person who I had hoped at that time would appear. I had hoped that that was on the horizon, and that hope was taken away, because then, once once this has been done to you, you don't feel as though you can ask for, your knight in shining armor, or your prince or whatever, to come and marry you or take you out of this situation, because now you're scarred, and you're not you're not worthy of that sort of relationship. At least that's the way you see it when it's happened to you. It's the way I processed it. Um, and it was very difficult for me to get over for a long time. So the next few years were extremely, extremely stressful. I I went into a downward spiral. I drank and drank and drank, and became very promiscuous. Trying to get back that power that you lose when someone has come into your personal space and invaded that. Um, so it was. I spent several years just doing things that were very self-destructive in order to try to rebuild something that I couldn't rebuild in that way, and I didn't realize that. And so it was very difficult for me to recover, because I also didn't tell anybody that this happened, and I kept it to myself, because it was, in my view at the time, it was very shameful and very, very bad. That this happened to me was somehow because I was a bad person. And it just changed me. And people who knew me before, I'm sure they probably would have noticed how much I'd changed. between the time that it happened and the next time that they saw me, because my whole demeanor was just different, and I was sinking. And thankfully, there was there was one day that I was on my way to some party or something, and I ended up telling my my cousin's brother. Just somehow or another, it got out. I just said it. What this person had done, and he was so shocked and just so worried at the time. You know that my perspective of the situation shifted completely, and I went from feeling like I had done something wrong to understanding that something had been done to me. And from there, I started to put some of the pieces together, and I started to regain some of the function that I had lost, as a result of the attack. So, and even now, to call it an attack seems odd, because it wasn't necessarily the thing you see in the movies or on TV when they show a rape. It was a very strange encounter, because I wasn't like out in the alley and someone, you know, came upon me and did this stuff. This was in my room, in my house, in my home, and, in a place that was familiar to me. And it was happening while I was just completely unconscious. And coming to consciousness with someone you trust doing these things is just it's talk about the epitome of a rude awakening. It was a terrible realization to have, that I I felt safe at one point, and then I didn't. And it was just, there was no way to regain that sense of security. And so, telling this to someone, and giving myself a voice, finally, after I think at least 2 years had passed, maybe three, before I even said anything to anybody. I mean, even my mother didn't know. And it was hard, because I told her everything, but I started hiding things because I was in so much pain. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back with the rest of the story. I'm back, and I'm just going to take a moment, take a little breather to sort out everything, because it really is a lot to unload, especially in a podcast. But I just felt very strongly that someone out there could use this discussion today, and I'm hoping that that is helpful for someone. Um, as I said, there was a lot of damage that was done, and it took me a long time to even tell anybody what had happened. And when I finally did tell someone, even my cousin hadn't known that this had happened. She just thought that we had gotten into an argument and that they left, you know. Because everything that happened after that was kind of a blur, and we kind of went our separate ways for a bit. And then when she found out, she of course, came back and was really worried, and um, very understanding about it. It wasn't that she was trying to accuse me of anything or anything like that. So I was always grateful that at least at least when I did tell people that I wasn't looked at as as the bad person in the equation, and they understood that this had been done, without my permission, and they understood why I had acted the way that I did after. So, um, but getting back to the overall impact of it, I spent a few years just not taking care of myself, just being really stupid about the way that I dealt with life, and I eventually snapped out of that and came back to my senses, and kind of found my way home. I ended up moving back in with my mom, and at that point, my parents had in fact split up for good, and it was a very different type of a dynamic there in the house. It was more of a refuge, that I had gone back into this place where I was safe. I'd always been safe with my mom, and always knew that no matter what, I could be there and nothing was going to happen to me. At least, nothing other than being yelled at by dad or something like that. But that's a lot of discussion that maybe I'll have one day, but not today. Um, so I went back and I stayed with my mom, and then I got a job working with some kids, and um, trying to help them with different things. And that was an interesting period in my life because I was kind of trying to get myself back together, trying to get my bearings, and to fix a few things. Um, I stopped drinking. I behaved myself basically for several years, and um, then later on, for some reason, I guess I was bored. I don't know, but my my other cousin, my cousin's brother, the one that I had originally told about everything, we spent a lot of time together, and we became really good friends, and we ended up starting to go out and go to the bar and see people and everything. And when we originally started out, we weren't drinking. We had just gone so that we could get out of the house and go do some line dancing and that kind of thing. But it quickly got to a place where we were drinking, and um, both of us just became really terrible alcoholic people. And well, I mean, we were already probably, I don't know about him so much, but I can't speak for him, but I know that I revived my relationship with alcohol, and I drank quite a bit during that time. And um, the sad thing was it was more or less out of boredom than anything, and not knowing what to do with myself because I was still kind of in a depression, and trying to sort through a lot of things. And I just I just couldn't get a grip on what I needed to do at that point in my life. Now this is a long time ago. This the rape happened 28 years ago. And from there, I mean, all of this stuff happened within the span of 5 or 6 years, I would say, because it happened. I drank, I went a little crazy, I got better for a little bit, and then I went back out and started drinking some more. And then, um, toward the end of all of that, I met my my husband, my ex-husband now, but I met him toward the end of all of my escapades there, and I settled down this time for good. And I noticed that there's a pattern in all of this. That I found a refuge at each stage of my healing, and I did some healing, went back to my mom and fixed a few things, and then I came back out and tried to do it again, tried to get out there, but my perspective was so different from what it was the first time I had tried to go out on my own, because of what happened, that I didn't approach it in a way that was productive. It was just really dumb to go backward the way that I did, but it happened, and I eventually figured out that I had to forgive myself for making these mistakes and for being, human, and for not understanding what could happen. Um, so, I got married. I had my daughter. We had a lot of challenges because during the time that we were married, I miscarried 5 times. One time before my daughter was born, and 4 times after. And no matter what we did, we just could not seem to make things work. We were together 10 years, um, and then I decided it was time to close that door because things were just not where they needed to be, and I felt like if I stayed there, I would never find the path that I was supposed to walk, and I feel like looking back on that, I was absolutely right, and sadly, you don't think that the bad things in your life are going to be what leads you to the good things. That you think when something bad happens to you, it's just always going to be a hindrance. It's always going to be um, the thing that keeps you from getting to where you need to be. But in my case, I would have to say that if this hadn't happened all those years ago, I'm not sure that I ever would have righted myself. I'm not sure that I would have been able um, to take a good look at what had happened and why it happened, and where I was safe and where I wasn't, and what mattered and what didn't. I don't think I would have been as objective in looking at those things if I hadn't suffered that trauma. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to suffer a trauma in order to have a good understanding of life, but I'm saying for some of us, if we are if we are struggling with finding our purpose and understanding our walk here on earth, um, the best thing we can do for ourselves is to look back at the stumbling blocks and try to figure out where we stumbled, what caused us to stumble, and how we were able to get back up once we were down. Um, I've had the opportunity to do that quite a bit, and for the last several years, I have felt like I'm not necessarily stumbled. I have been um, struggling a bit to get up and walk a very productive walk because it seems like there's one thing after another, but I am still moving forward, and I am building positive things where those negative things used to be all I could see. And I had to tear down a lot of old beliefs, and I had to tear down a lot of negative feelings about myself and about other people in order to do that. So, um, and actually, it was all of that pain, coupled with all the pain from what I experienced growing up, and just my need to understand all of that, as well as what happened to me personally, that kind of shaped my desire to write and get those feelings out for other people, to help them understand where they were as well. And it really became the driving force behind why I became a writer and a publisher, and decided that I wanted people to share their stories, to understand the therapeutic value of getting those things out there and letting other people know that, hey, this happened in my life and this is where I'm at now. And if it's happening to you, or if you're going through something that is challenging for you, understand that you don't always have to stay in that place. You will come out of it, just as long as you keep going and keep trying to find the path that will lead you out of it. You have to really coach yourself out of it. And, of course, I'm going to say prayer and connecting to God is extremely important. These are, I mean, it's just absolutely necessary that you understand that you are not in control, and God is. And if you go through these things, He's not punishing you. He's trying to teach you something about who you are, who you can be, and who you don't have to be. Um, and it doesn't always make sense, and sometimes it takes a very long time for you to be able to not be angry with God about the things that have happened to you, and to really talk to Him about um, where He's put you and what He's put you through, and how He has managed to put you back together after you've been so broken. So that is that's where I find myself, at a place where I'm looking at all of the pieces that He has put back together for me over these nearly 30 years, and understanding that that fear that used to control me is not there anymore. And that's a very good place to be, especially when I think back to the nights where I was living by myself, and there were a lot of those because I lived by myself for quite a while. And I had, and there was this one instance that there was some utility worker that was stalking me, which was very strange. And I remember the panic that I felt at that point, because up to then, since the rape, I had been relatively safe. I knew what was around me and everything, and then all of a sudden, there's this person, and he's like calling my phone and doing all this weird stuff, and I had to report him and everything, and it was extremely scary, because I was still in the process of healing from what had happened when that occurred. And I remember thinking that I was just never going to be okay, when I was at that point. And I remember, sleeping on my couch and holding this metal ball bat that I had to try to protect myself, and checking the door 20 times a night to make sure nobody was there trying to get in. And I was a mess for a long time. But going through those periods of time where fear was trying to take over, boy, you really start to understand who's in your corner and where your power is. And I understood that God was with me in all the things that He showed me. He got me out of so much trouble and kept me from self-destructing completely, and that it's just amazing that I made it through that time without more injury and more damage than what was incurred. So, in any case, I wanted to share that with you because it was on my mind this morning, and I thought someone out there is going through some things that don't make sense right now, and they need to understand that we all do go through these things, and we need to go through these things, and eventually you will find your solution. You will be able to find a way to deal with the pain and to heal and to get to another place in your life, to that next level where you can start to grow in a positive way. Thank you so much for stopping by today and listening to this episode of the Leading the Follower podcast. This one doesn't have a blog post that accompanies it, but but there is a lot of material over on the blog that you might find inspiring and empowering if you are suffering from a trauma or traumatic event that has occurred in your life. And you might want to check out our Write and Heal coaching program that is available through Higher Ground Books and Media. You can get more information on that by going to the Higher Ground Books and Media website and going to our editing and writing services page. You can find that right in the menu bar on the home page of that website. Once again, we are so happy that you stopped by and that you listened to the podcast today. I hope that you get something out of this that helps you to either embark on your journey toward healing or continue on that journey. It does get better. It sometimes takes a very long time, but if you keep moving forward and pressing toward the goal that you have to be healthy and whole and safe and at peace, you will get there. Be sure to pray, to reach out to God and ask Him to help you in your healing process. And, use your time to journal and, read scripture and just look for ways to empower yourself. Look for uplifting things to keep you motivated. It really does matter what you feed yourself in terms of what you watch on television, what you listen to on the radio, and what you read, everything that you see, everything you take in. If the things that you are taking in are reinforcing the wrong messages, your healing is going to be a lot slower than it would be if you just look for the positive things. So keep that in mind. I wish you all the best in whatever it is you need to do, and I just hope that you will do what is needed to bring yourself back into a place of peace. Once again, thank you and God bless you. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to check out our website and blog. The blog is at www.leading-the-follower.com. Thanks and God bless.